though celebrated on Monday, that's celebrated every first Monday in October, which heralds the Urban October, as it is called by the WHO. But we do have someone who will be helping us look at what this day stands for, and especially the Nigerian situation. Thank you so much for your time with us. I'm talking about Doyin Adewola, who is the Chief Executive Officer of ROOMEO Construct Limited. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
All right, World Habitat Day celebrated on Monday. Nigerians joined as always, but let's speak to the theme of this year's celebration. Of course, cities, what we are looking at and how they can help develop the economies and boost the economies. How important are urban cities in boosting economies around the world?
All right. Thank you once again for having me. And like you said, the World Habitat Day, celebrated on the first Monday in October every year, as recognized by the United Nations General Assembly. And for this year's theme, it is resilient urban economies, looking at how cities can be drivers of growth and recovery. And I'm sure you remember that about 3 years ago, we had the COVID-19 pandemic, and a couple of countries, including Nigeria, are still trying to come out of that disruption. So cities are the reflection of the nation, right? Urban cities, our urban centers are the reflection of the nations, and the health of a nation in terms of its economy, in terms of the well-being of people, is directly represented by the urban cities. And that's because of the fact that there's a concentration of economic activities, concentration of innovation, of infrastructure, a concentration of a lot of other factors in the urban cities. So it is important that we take our cities very seriously. Talking about growth now, we have to look at what we can do. Inflation is on the rise in Nigeria. For instance, food inflation is 30%. General inflation is about 20% annually. So we have to look at what we can do. And I think that the government can create policies to help boost the economy in the urban cities. People want a good life. We all want a great life. So there is, of course, migration to the urban cities. Lagos is an example, right, of what I'm talking about, where there is a lot of stress on infrastructure. But in Nigeria, the most prominent challenge we have right now is inflation, and that's because of the increase in fuel prices. And so there has to be things looked at into transportation, mass transportation, and all of that to cushion the effect of the inflation in the cities.
Well, let's bring this home. You talked about Lagos and the pressure on infrastructure really in our urban cities. I know you work on this field, real estate field. I went around to speak with some experts during the World Habitat Day, talking about what challenges does Nigeria have in terms of urban, development, urban cities development. What are the challenges, and what can be done, to boost it back or take it to an enviable position? I will take a quick break to settle some challenge with the technical issues, and then we'll be back. All right, thank you so much for your time with us. I'm back to you now, Doyin.
Yep.
Okay, so during the World Habitat Day on Monday, I went around the city to find out how people are responding, with this issue. And I came in contact with some town planners who said the problem with Nigeria is that most cities are not planned. And then that even where there is plan, people violate these plans and all of that. So in your real estate sector,
right,
what is being done to address the situation?
I think you can't really blame the fact that there are a lot of people coming into the urban centers. Everyone wants a good life, right? And these are just because of the need for economic stability and all of that. So I think there should be equity and inclusivity, right, in our urban centers. And what do I mean by that? For instance, let's take Abuja as an example. You see that infrastructure is concentrated in the city centers, in the metropolitan areas, the CBD. And we have a lot of satellite towns that somewhat have been neglected. Access to road might be a lot poorer than you have in the CBDs, access to water, security, such that you have a lot of pressure in the municipal city. So my advice is the government should look at developing these suburbs, right, so that you don't have too much pressure in the municipal. Another reason is that we need access to affordable housing. If you notice that most of the real estate developers are focused on luxury development, luxury houses, and it's not their fault because it's just about 10% of the market of the Nigerians that can afford to buy a home. Right. The solution would have been mortgage facilities, but the question is that how many people have that income? How many people are productive in Nigeria to be able to afford a home? So it's not necessarily a problem of we don't have enough houses. It is that the economy doesn't support people to have a home. So I think that affordable housing, government providing initiatives that help people to own their houses, doesn't have to be luxurious, but it could just be in form of public-private partnership that help people, and it reduces the cost of homes generally.
Okay, so I also know that on that day you held a conference, really.
Yes.
You called it the Real Series,
yes.
a platform to engage stakeholders in the Nigerian real estate
yes.
sector. So what was the outcome of that engagement?
So the Real Series, which stands for the Real Estate Annual Lecture Series, is a platform for leaders, innovators, decision makers, and key stakeholders in Nigerian housing sector to create actionable insights on the pathways to harnessing the nation's sector, the opportunities in the real estate sector or the housing sector. And pretty much we looked at the state of the Nigerian housing sector and the path to progress. We had a lot of lectures. One of that was around the menace of collapsed buildings in Nigeria. I'm sure you know that we had about 20-something collapse in Nigeria last year, or even this year. A lot of them were in Lagos. And for us, the conversation was around regulation, right? It's not enough that you have regulatory authorities coming after you to check what you're building, your reinforcement quality, your concrete quality, but you as well within your organization, you have to self-regulate yourself because you're making so much investment into real estate. So why can't you use professionals? So there was a lot of conversation around the use of professionals in real estate construction. We also had conversations around alternative use of affordable materials to build. Nigeria by tradition uses very traditional materials which might not be as affordable, right? So we need a lot of research in that aspect where we can explore alternative use of materials that eventually reduces the cost of construction.
Okay, apart beyond the cost, really, there's what is called making an environment really livable,
right.
Both for humans,
Definitely.
you know, and businesses to thrive.
Right.
But that seems to be a challenge. You see people building on slums, you know, and that makes even the cities not livable. And sometimes you think that these slums, you find them in the rural communities, but you find them all around, even in cities.
Yeah.
So how do you think this can be addressed? Because if economy has to grow based on this year's World Habitat Day, then these issues have to be addressed.
Definitely, the prevalence of people living in slums in urban areas is quite high, not just in Nigeria. But like I said, one of the ways we can solve this problem is to ensure that the satellite towns and the suburbs are also equipped to this point where people don't have to migrate to the city centers, right? For instance, in Abuja, you have Kubwa, you have Buhari, you have Suleja, you have Gwagwalada, you have Kuje. The question is, do people have equal standard of living? Do they have access to the amenities they have when they come to Wuse, to Asokoro? Do they also have the security, the good roads, the water supply? So it's more of an economic challenge, right, rather than a housing challenge. So Nigeria has to focus more on building its economy, making it more productive. We are more consumption in approach. Most of the things we consume are imported. So Nigeria has to produce to also increase the economy of the nation.
We have to go now, but are you doing anything to develop these satellite towns in Abuja, for instance?
Primarily, that is the responsibility of the government, right? For us, a private sector, all we need is an enabling environment. Partnership, for instance, we get access to land. I'm sure the government is doing a lot. For instance, like your question the other time about slums and all of that. When the Minister for FCT came in, that is former governor of Rivers State, that is Minister Wiki, right? There were a lot of demolitions happening, and I think his approach is also to clean up, to make sure that these green areas are properly kept in Abuja for safe living.
For safe living, quite key there. Thank you so much. Doyin Adewola is the Chief Executive Officer of ROOMEO Construct. Limited. He's joined us to look at the World Habitat Day, which was celebrated on Monday, the first Monday in October, which heralds the Urban October in accordance with the United Nations World Habitat Day. Thank you so much, and do have a great day.
Thank you very much.
All right. One more discussion to come your way right here on Kakaki, the African Voice. We'll be talking about a book titled Mary and the Hidden Island. An interesting part of this is that this book is written by a 13-year-old boy. You want to have him